Welcome, John.
Hey, what's
Uh,
going on?
so this is the Jeong Bros podcast. I still didn't think of a name of this series, this talk, this podcast. I guess you can call it. But I invited my good friend John here. We're really excited to talk about a couple of different things, just based on our own personal experience, just to have fun, catch up, and I guess also inspire each other because I get a lot of inspiration from John. He's very disciplined in many ways. He's also very goal driven, also down to earth. Definitely not super crazy. um, but anyways, so we just off the camera we talked about just catching up on Christmas stories and such. But we're gonna jump right into it because I want to save everyone's time that may watch it in the future. And the first topic I think that I want to talk about that I think is something that I went through, I think this is something that John went through as well, was about speaking to your Asian parents about doing something that's seemingly more risky and how that relationship played out, how that scene played out for both of us. Just in the sense of if you are in this situation, which can be frustrating, which can seem lonely in some sense, perhaps a different perspective from other people's experience can be helpful. So, we're going to go right into it. John, why don't you give like a 1 minute breakdown of what was happening before you made the decision of doing, pursuing Pollyanna, your business? Um, yeah, just let's just start with that so that people are up to speed on that end.
Yeah, so just to give everyone context, I'd started my business, Polianna, a digital marketing agency focused on SEO when I was a junior in college. And so at the time, I was at the Naval Academy, and that college route is a little bit different than normal colleges because you're going to be a military officer. And so, I went to the school because my dad was Navy. He wanted me to be there. So my mom. And so I was there, but on the side, I was starting my own business. And so, third year in, I was faced with a decision because within 1 year, I was going to graduate and go into the military, or I could, go off and try to start my own business. And at the time, I wasn't really sure what I should do, just because I'd never, I don't come from a business background. I come from typical Asian background. Mom's medical field, dad's in the Navy, and so I had no idea what to expect. And to be honest with you, when answer your question about the conversation, it actually at the time I don't think this is the best way to do it, but it really wasn't a conversation. It was more I'd made the decision first, and then they found out later because I knew that they would be very angry with me that I had left school. Um, And so I don't know. Do you want me to hop right into that, or? But that's like for the answer is like I didn't really have a conversation. It's like I kind of just
Mhm.
did it on
Yeah,
my own.
yeah. Let's jump right into that situation because I think a lot of people kind of role play what's going to happen inside their head when they like bring it up to their parents. What was that like atmosphere like when you just
When they found
how
out.
did you even start to even bring that up to your parents? Like, where did you even start?
Yeah. So again, I didn't bring it up. What happened was that's this is why I'm not this is not my proudest moment.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what happened was it was the summer going into my senior year, and I was supposed to be on military training. Because prior to your senior year, you need to see all parts of the Navy, and I was supposed to be doing that. But I told my parents I dropped out, and then I told my parents like, oh, for some reason they're not. I'm not going to training right now. There's I don't know there's some delays of some sort because I didn't know what to say. I was too afraid. I'd never done something like
Yeah,
this to
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
break off the path.
Hmm.
And so I was just working from the business at home. And so I remember there was a day in the summer, and I was up early, probably around 7:30 a.m. Still living at home, working in the basement. And my mom, she works night shift, so she came home with my dad. And so I was just working, working, working. And I just noticed something weird because normally they will say like hello or something when they walk in, but there was no hello. So it's like, all right, that's kind of weird. Whatever. I'm gonna continue working. So my mom walks over and then she walks up to me and then she's just like with like she's like very like with hurt in her voice. She said, like, how could you? And again, this is the morning time, so I'm not ready for anything. I'm just like I just kind of like woke up. So she's like, how could you? I was like, well, well, what did I do? And then she's like, I found it. And I was like, oh, what'd you find? She's like, I found your separation papers from the military because you have separation papers, and I'd mistakenly just left it around the house.
Casually sitting there.
And so what ends up happening is I kind of realized that what she realized that I left, and so it just becomes a screaming match, and was just like, how could you do this? You betrayed us. Like, you were so close to graduating, and you're gonna pursue, like, what are you doing? Like, you're gonna pursue this business thing. Do you have any clients? Like, do you have anything? And I literally had nothing. Like, I just started the business at the time, so I had nothing to say. And so, what ends up happening is, it's pretty heated, not good at all. And honestly, by the end of the conversation, it wasn't resolved. It was just bad all around. It was bad because, one, I hadn't brought it up first. Second, I'm pursuing this thing. There's literally no clients, no business at all. And then third, they also want to bring me back. And so, I they continue to say, is there any way we can change what happened? And it was not a good situation for many, many months. And I'd say probably for the greater part of a year as well. It was a lot of denial, anger, sadness, and depression.
A whole year.
Yeah, maybe a little longer as well. Just because to give you the background, I come from a family of military. My dad was a career 20 years. All my uncles, majority of them also career Navy. Yeah. And I was 1 year away from graduating. So you can kind of, it's kind of like like if you were put into their shoes, like I would also feel the same way. Like what's going on in your head? And you're pursuing something that there's no proven track record.
Right.
So it was, it took a while. It took a while.
Yeah, I mean, just jumping in on like my personal story as well. I don't think I'm personally proud of how I approached it, how I brought it up. So for me, it was also summertime. So I mean, for me, I got into dental school. I got into like 2 out of the 4 I applied to, but I felt no sense of fulfillment. There was no there's nothing wrong with dentistry. I have tons of friends from college that have gone on to do the dental and they love it. I still work with one of the dentists that I shadowed, and he's a good inspiration, good mentor, and such. But I just couldn't see myself doing it. But yeah, that summer I cracked my knee, so I needed surgery, and it was a month before going into dental school. So it was really tough. I got in, almost there. And then the week before it starts, I decided, screw it, I'm going to take this surgery, use that as a scapegoat so I can't go to dental school because I would have to drive myself to dental school. But the fun fact is I actually could have driven, according to the doctor. After like 2 weeks, I could have driven on crutches, of course. But and my mom was not pleased about that either. But how I brought it up to my parents was like, just like you, I told them, I already dropped out, and I scheduled my knee surgery. Not too proud of that, but just like your parents, they're livid. Like, what are you doing? Like, Why are you doing this to yourself? Like, we sacrifice this. I think this is something that a lot of parents or a lot of Asian kids can relate to. Their parents are bringing up, we sacrifice so much for you.
Yep.
Why are you making such a decision after all we've done? And it's completely fair from their perspective. They've sacrificed unimaginable amount, and we will probably never sacrifice to that level ever in our lives, at least in my opinion. It's just a whole different ball game. But anyways, so mad. And I'm confused, just caught off guard. I mean, I brought it up several times. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't think I can do this. And my mom saying, like, why don't you just try it for a year? You know, try
Same
for
thing with my parents. Yeah.
you maybe you'll like it. You know, maybe you'll like it. Try anything to convince me. Uh, And at first I bought into the idea of, yeah, let's just do a year. And if I calculate the debt, maybe it's like 40, 50,000. I
Yeah.
could probably handle that amount in my lifetime, but definitely not 200, $300,000. And of course, money was not the only issue. It's just this lack of passion for the career. But let's jump back right into your story, because I want to help people visualize this if they're role playing this inside their head. Within the first 24 to 48 hours, what were your emotions? What were you going through? Obviously, there were some emotions that you had when you first made the decision in your head, like before you told anyone. That in itself is a lot of emotion and stress. But yeah, let's talk about the first 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah. So first 24, 48 hours. If you can just imagine hop back into the situation again, it's tensions are very high, right? Again, there's anger, there's betrayal, there's just a mix of sadness and depression with all of that. And then on my end, I there's a lot of shame, by the fact that my parents, realized that about me, and also doubts now because did I make a smart decision? Because some of the closest people in my life are saying that I made the most, the most dumb decision. Also mixed into that cocktail of emotions was, I'm still running the business. There's still, I still I don't have any clients. I'm still trying to go out there and I have to meet people and I have to put myself in situations I've never had before. And so at the time, I mean, it was just a lot of negative emotions. And um, I think that it was just, I don't know how to describe it. It was probably one of the lowest points in my life, up to that point, because up to that point, like I'd made everyone proud, right? I was always A student. I was always perfect attendance, whatever. But I don't know. It's just like all those feelings, and I don't know. I'd really, and that was like the first 24, 40 hours, but I think that carried through that year because it never was resolved. My parents still felt the same way. They would bring it up, at dinner time. They would bring it up when we were in the car. They would just, I don't know, they would just like drop, small comments, just like, you have any clients yet? Yeah. Do you have any, when you go back to school, like, when are you going to make a good decision? Like, when are you going to figure it out? And so it's like, I don't know. The highest intensity was those first 2 days, but then it just kept on going on and on and on. And actually, I was thinking about this prior to our conversation, and I could best describe this as them kind of like going through the 5 stages of grief, right? In the beginning, it was like the denial, and then it's quickly switched to anger. And then, the few months in, it was like bargaining, like, hey, if you do this, if you go back to school, like, I help you out with this or that. And then stage 4 is depression, right? Sadness is like almost acceptance, but it's like, oh my gosh. And then finally into actual acceptance. But just overall, man, it was not pretty. And I think I definitely, because it was so negative, I had to numb myself to not think about how things were, and kind of just like, I kind of just buried myself in the work. And I think that's what ended up happening too.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the point that they kept bringing it up, and I think same situation. I mean, even to this day, they jokingly do it now. Nowadays, it's like, oh, what if Isaac was a dentist? How great it would be, getting our teeth done at home in the middle of COVID. But I think for anyone that's kind of thinking about, bringing something like this to their parents, but not just about business, but personal life decision where it can be drastic in some sense in the eyes of parents. I think it's better to start thinking about it, like kind of role playing the negative situation, not so much, because at least for me, when I was kind of imagining in my head, it's like, oh, maybe my parents are gonna be like, yeah, Isaac, we finally understand. It's gonna be okay. You do what you want. Instead of doing that, I think it's better to start thinking about the worst possible situation, which is, like you described. You described it perfectly, the 5 stages of grief. And my parents kind of went through the same thing. It was like, oh my God, and then it's like really angry. Now they're fine with it. They're happy with what I'm doing. They have no issues there. But let's jump into, how many years has it been since you made that decision? 3?
So it was 2016. So it's about 4 years and 6 months. I think it happened in May of 2016 when I left.
Okay.
So nearing the 5-year mark, kind of crazy.
So it's been almost 5 years, and I think I had this conversation with you a couple years ago. That's when I didn't decide to quit dental school. I was still like on the border.
Yeah.
And I was very envious of you. It's like, oh my God, he made such a big decision, and look, I can't even make this decision. Anyways, how has your perspective on this decision changed over time? Because it certainly did for me.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly from the point of view of understanding our own parents, where they're coming from. Let's just dive into that. How has that changed?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was 20 years old, so I was still pretty childish and immature. And so at the time, I was, kind of angry with my parents. So like, why don't they just let me do what I want to do and let me be happy? Why are they always getting in the way? And at the time, that's kind of like how I felt because, I don't know, I was still like, it was like parent to child relationship. And it took a few years of maturing and realizing and trying to put myself in their shoes and understanding like they have every right to have felt that way. They don't know all my feelings, emotions, and how I came to my decision. They just saw, it was sudden. It was like all of a sudden John just drops out. And I naturally too, would be angry and frustrated seeing that. And so that's one of my perspective shifts over time. The second one, at the time, I also wasn't sure about the opportunity, and I think it's like that with anything, right? Before you get into anything new or get into a job or business, whatever, you're not sure about it. But I knew at the time that I was looking at the trends, and I knew that digital would become more important. And so I had this feeling that it would become better and bigger, and I could succeed in it. But I just still wasn't sure if it was going to happen. So, but more years that I went into it, I realized that, I did make the right decision. I'm picking up clients, and especially with the pandemic just happening, the world's shifting more online more and more. And so it was a guess at the time, but I'm getting even more certain that, okay, this was a smart decision to have made. And so those are a few of the transitions I've seen over time so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything on my end as well from my own experience that, it takes some time, at least for me. It took a lot of time for me, and it required me to go through different experiences to understand to some degree why my parents were so upset. I had the same ideas. It's like, oh, why can't my parents just let me do what makes me happy? And of course, from a parent's perspective, all they want is, us to be successful in life, to be happy, to be healthy, to be safe, most importantly, because they had their share of experience in this world. We obviously did not, in some sense, especially if I don't know if it applies to all Asian households, but in most sense than not, you're a little bit more sheltered, kind of live in a bubble. You're protected a lot from a lot of things, which is good. But our lack of knowledge, our lack of experience of different things, we start to think about, oh, why can't I just do this? So yeah, for me that was definitely, that took a couple of years, and now I completely I wouldn't say completely, but I understand why they were so upset. And like I said before, they still bring up dentistry, man. But now my mom it's just like complete different situations. Like, oh my God, look at the pandemic. what if you were a dentist with all this debt and had no job? I'm like, yeah,
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's a fundamental mindset shift. That's amazing.
yeah. And my parents, I think what they were really sad about was that I made these types of decisions. Even like quitting my job, my dad was a little upset about that because I made those type of decisions without really consulting with my parents.
Yeah.
I mean, I just looked at the reality of the situation in terms of my job, and like, well, the numbers made sense. Making enough to provide for myself and my wife.
Yeah.
Let's just jump ship now. So let's. I think this is the last point. Unless you want to dig deeper into this situation, this experience, and hopefully I'm covering enough so that people can take a different perspective and learn from our mistakes. But for some of the people in the audience that are going through this, if there is a safer way to do what you did, which is in essence like start a business in this particular place, or if you could do it differently, what would that look like?
Yeah, if I could have done it differently, I probably would have started off working somewhere, honestly, because the way that I did it was when I left the academy, I'd taken a loan out. They call it the career starter loan, and it's $36,000, right? It's a lot for a kid to just sign off on, but I signed off on it. And typically, what people do with it is that they buy a car with it, or they put a down payment. But for me, I was like, well, they called it a career starter loan, so I'm gonna actually start my career in business. And so, when I had that money, I was just blowing through it because I was like, I need to spend on these business things and do this and that. But I didn't have any money coming in because I had to get clients. I still had to get clients.
Yeah.
So if I were to do it differently, I wish I had some stream of income so I wasn't going into debt in order to make my dreams come true. Like if you can imagine it, and I think kind of like the way that you did it was smart. It's kind of like you already have a role, and then on the side you might be developing your skills or building an income, and then from there, once you get to a certain point, you transition off. But for me, I was just wild. I literally just quit school with no other option other than making the business succeed. Some might argue that was I wouldn't recommend it to everyone, but I probably that probably helped me out because I had to make it. I had to make it work because there's no other option. But that's probably one change I'd make. Second change I might make is what it would be. I mean, aside from that, it's just I don't know. It's tied with finances as well. Just being a little bit more smart with my money. I spent a lot of. I mean, I spent a lot of money on really dumb stuff in the beginning because I felt like, oh, I have all this money, and but I really didn't, and so it was really dumb. So that's probably another thing I would change. I can get into the stories. I've lost tens of thousands of dollars doing really dumb stuff.
We're definitely gonna jump into money. That's the next topic of the conversation. But I think I'll jump into the idea of doing it on the side before completely jumping ship. I think this is with anything, but particularly in this case, if you wanted to do your own business. I didn't do it like John. I didn't just like. This is what my mom thought. She thought I dropped out of dental school. I had already quit my job and I had nothing. No, that wasn't the case. I'm not ballsy enough to do that. I know myself enough. I kept the job for, I think, another year and a half, almost 2 years. It just, like John was saying, just learning a lot, taking all the money that I earned from my side stuff, especially like reselling stuff, and reinvesting into like buying trainings, sometimes buying stupid trainings that just cost a lot of money and didn't cover anything that I could have learned on Google or YouTube, and just doing it that way. And then because like I know myself enough, I can't just like cut everything and just go. I had to gradually build and then saw substantial enough results for me to say, okay, I feel comfortable enough. But I think for me, what helped is that I had someone like you to get some advice on. Because I think you remember I asked you, there was a situation where I could take on a client that could easily replace my current income with my job. And at the time, this was right before COVID too. And
Yeah.
then you were telling me, oh yeah, you should definitely do that, so that you can focus all your time on marketing and learning more about marketing video stuff. And that was completely right. But lo and behold, it worked out that COVID. I mean, obviously, COVID is not a good thing, but
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this particular situation, I could work both my job and my side business at the same time, and so it was like double income for a couple of months until I decided, okay, my my business, what I was doing for my side business was taking on way too much time, so I couldn't do my job at all.
Mhm, mhm.
And it was more stress than anything. The money that I was getting from that job wasn't making me happy in any sense. So I was like, all right, it's time to go. So everyone who's watching, whether it's right now or later, hopefully you got something out of it. So now let's talk about stupid stuff that we've done with money. Um, Yeah, I mean, so to give a little bit more context, John likes to post on his stories on Instagram about financial freedom, being debt free, just being smarter about money, understanding money better. Um, let's start with this before we get into the stupid stuff that we've done. What is the best piece of advice that you've gotten or read, I guess, about money, and what is the worst piece of financial advice that you've gotten?
That's a great thing. Best piece of advice I'd say about money is the best investment you can make first is in your brain. I'd
Mm-hmm.
say that's probably the most important thing because they talk about, oh, you should go into this stock or that, and you should you should day trade, or you should start up this e-com business, and that's all great. That's all great, but the first place to start with money is always being educated, knowing what you're investing in, understanding the trade-offs, the benefits, the cons.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I wish that piece of advice I listened to it. I wish I'd listened to it more because I lost a lot of money because I didn't. I I was like, oh, I think it's just gonna work, but I haven't really
Yeah.
learned about it, so I just put money into it. So
Yeah.
best piece of advice: invest in your brain first. Worst piece of advice. Oh, that's going to be a tricky one. Let me see if I can think of one. Worst piece of advice.
Can be anything ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I'd say one bad piece of advice as a whole just is just like it's like people who aren't how do I phrase it? They just want to save as much money as possible, so they're just cheap about things. And I think
Yeah.
I think that's the worst piece of advice. Just like try to like save every single penny.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's merit to, of course, saving, but it's
Mm-hmm.
more so I think the better advice is just being intentional with your spending and
Mm-hmm.
knowing when you're spending on things that are not worth it in terms of the value add in
Mm-hmm.
comparison to the opposite. And
Yeah.
so I just don't like the advice of, oh, I never want to ever go out. I never want to grab dinner with friends. I
Mm-hmm.
only want to spend the cheapest
Mm-hmm.
on clothes or this and that. I- Again, I feel like you kind of deprive yourself of life.
Mm-hmm.
In order to save like a dollar or so or whatever. So I would say that's the worst piece of advice, but it's countered by intentional spending and knowing what you truly value and
Yeah.
spending on that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I felt like you were just talking about me for a second. I was like that, especially in high school. Working this job at a local YMCA as a lifeguard, what else did I do? Swim instructor,
Mhm.
making like $6 an hour. It was awful.
Yeah.
You take out the taxes, there's like $3 left per hour.
Oh,
So, I was at that point because I grew up in such a poor family too. My dad was a missionary. My mom was, always there too for the family, and she made ends meet. But just like growing up in that situation, I think a lot of people can relate to that. If you grow up in a situation where your money is so scarce, and um, I don't think my parents necessarily did anything wrong because they knew what they were doing. They were giving everything to the church,
yep.
which is I completely respect, and I'm glad that they did that. because I learned so much from those type of experiences. But we never really got educated on how money works or why we should save. 'Cause when I think when I was really poor and not making a lot of money, it's just like save every single penny, and kind of like what you were saying, don't go out to eat.
Yeah.
To some extent, I still say this to myself, like it's not. I don't enjoy spending money on food as much as other things. But there was a point in time, especially in college, where I would just spend money I didn't have on clothes.
Mm.
I want to be a fashionista. Yeah. Um, That was really ridiculous. But we can go more into that as well. But yeah, I think you're really right about that being a bad advice, not necessarily helpful advice. Um, but let's talk about when you were growing up, because I just covered how I was in high school. What was one, I guess, bad habit that you had or flaw that you had with money? Like we were saying, for a lot of people, you were saying the opposite spectrum of spend saving every single penny. I think a lot of
Mhm.
people have the issue of spending too much on
Mhm.
stuff that they don't really necessarily need.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, let's dive into that.
Mm. Yeah, well, growing up, well, I didn't really have much money growing up myself either. I just had money from Christmas and from holiday stuff. And so, honestly, when I was a kid, at least, there was really not much. I had maybe one job. It was the EPA. I was intern there, and
Mhm.
we had a little bit of money that came in, but I didn't. I really didn't spend it. My parents actually took really good care of us. They didn't. They
Mhm.
didn't want us to spend anything.
Mhm.
Um, but because of that, I didn't really have a good understanding of
Mhm.
money, and I
Mhm.
was and so to share with a quick story. So after I left, this is like kind of story from the beginning. So after
Mhm.
I left college, I was living at home. I started to bring in some money because I started to get clients.
Mhm.
And again, I wasn't very financially savvy. I really know whatever, but
Mhm.
I remember one morning. It's always in the morning time. So my mom comes home from work, and then she starts. I'm asleep. This time I'm
Yeah.
asleep. I'm not awake. But she
Yeah.
just starts yelling at me. I don't remember what she was yelling at me about, but she was yelling at me, and I was sleeping, and I was like, for me, I placed a hard boundary. Like I need good sleep, and so
Uh,
when she woke me up, I was livid. I was angry, and I forget what we were talking about, but I'd vowed. I said to her, I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm moving out because I'm not gonna take this treatment anymore. And so
Cut down on that,
so
huh?
I was like, I'm moving out. And and so that same day I hopped on my computer, I went on Craigslist to find an apartment. Now again,
Mm.
I'd never really looked for an apartment before, so I had no idea what I was looking for. So so I
I
ended
can't
up
imagine the type of places that you found on Craigslist.
yeah. And so for me, I was so livid that I was gonna take the first one that I got.
Oh
And
my
so
god.
and so and so and so what ended up happening was I found this place in DC.
Mhm.
Um, it wasn't in the best location, but I thought it was pretty cool because it had this rooftop and
Mhm.
it was next to all these things. And the person who was telling me that the real estate agent, she was like very convincing. And so she was like, oh, so what's your income? And I was like, oh, it's X amount. She's like, oh, okay, so you can afford this. And so like, how are you planning on setting up the apartment? I was like, oh, well, it's gonna be me, and I'm gonna try to find two other people. But right now, I think I'm just gonna get it all myself because I'll just find the people later. Because I was in my head, I was like thinking, yeah, I could find two other people to live with me,
Yeah, it's not
easy,
hard.
easy. So the rent, the rent was with all the apartments. It was 4K per month, and
Oh,
I need to do first month, last month, and security deposit is half. So that's $10,000. And so again, remember, I had the money at the time, but again, I was livid, and and this was my first apartment that I was looking at, and so I was like, whatever, yeah, $10,000, I'll write the check, and so I
wow.
wrote it, um, and then I was like, and so I got the apartment, and so I was like, all right, I'm moving out. That's good. That's awesome. I'm moving out. But then after I do that, I tell my parents, like, all right, I'm moving out. They're like, okay, whatever. But I start telling friends, and they're like, that sounds kind of suspicious. Like,
Ooh.
we're looking at the address, and this doesn't these numbers aren't matching up. Like, something's weird. And so I end up going to one of my friends who was in rental real estate, and she begins looking at things, and she finds out that this person did not really own the property, and they were also upcharging the rent by a ridiculous amount.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, oh shit, like this. Yeah, you're not supposed to go for your first apartment. I think I'm being bamboozled. And so I try to get my money back, but they're like,
Yeah.
no, we're not gonna give you your money back. And this is $10,000. This is
Yeah.
a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, this is a lot.
Yeah, and then I end up having to get a lawyer and to see, because they're like, oh, well, even though you want your money back, you signed a lease, so you're gonna be locked in. You put $10,000 down, but you're locked in for 2 years.
Oh
And
my God.
I don't have any tenants. Remember that it's gonna be
Yeah.
$4,000 a month.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so what ends up happening is I end up getting a lawyer, and we have to get into a legal dispute in order for me to cancel the contract. But the stipulation is that I can't get my money back.
Uh-huh.
So, in conclusion, I was able to get out of the lease, but I'm out $10,000, and it was for literally nothing because I just couldn't control my emotions.
Yeah.
That's literally it. Just because my mom came in one day yelling at me, and I felt that I was big man on campus because I have some clients. Yeah, so that's what happened, man. It was, and it's because I didn't really have a true understanding of money. I was kind of like laissez-faire. Oh yeah, I have money, whatever. Yeah, I can do it.
I'll figure it out type of deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll figure it out later. Then
Yeah.
at the Naval Academy, they say shoot first, aim later, and then that's not a really, really smart. So it really messed me up.
Not in that particular situation.
Oh yeah, it was not good, and that taught me the importance of I need to manage my emotions. I need to not make big decisions when I'm feeling very like anger or extreme happiness or extreme confidence. I need to be level-headed and also have counsel when I'm making these decisions rather than just doing them on my own, or I'm going to be out a lot of money. And that's like one of many, you know what I mean? So,
I just can't imagine you in that type of emotional state. I've never seen you mad.
Yeah.
I've always seen you pretty level-headed. Maybe it's just timing. When we met, you were very level-headed, and you give very sound advice. But maybe it's from the experiences. But looking back at that situation now, how would you have reacted differently because obviously I think a lot of people go through this emotional state where you just had it enough with your parents. You just got to move out. What would you do differently?
What I'll do differently, number one, at the time, I was just thinking about myself. It was very just like, it's my way or the highway. You treat me how I want, or I'm gone. It's just very forceful versus like it's a we win. At the time it was like I win versus a we win. So I wasn't thinking about, okay, well, my mom just came home from work and maybe something happened and maybe something is ticking her off. And instead of understanding her perspective, I just said, I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah.
That'll be the first thing. Second thing would be, I should have talked to more people, like my friends. I should have talked to a real estate agent. I should have talked to people who've gotten apartments before.
Maybe look at other apartments.
Yeah, I would have looked at more apartments too, and I would have learned a little bit more. Right, it's that knowledge thing I mentioned earlier. I really had no idea what I was doing. I was just, I felt. I don't know. It's hubris. Like it was too much confidence.
Yeah.
I thought I could literally do anything. So that's the second thing I'd change. And third thing is, I wouldn't have gotten an apartment with just myself if I needed 3 people total. Like I don't know. This is kind of like dumb. Like I don't know what I was thinking. I really just I don't know what I was very.
Well, what happened, and you learned a lot from it. But similar to you, I was very nonchalant about money too, especially in college. I think freshman year of college, I was very frugal, but then come sophomore year, and this is particularly because kind of like you got a huge loan from your school. I was getting scholarship from my bank because I wasn't living on campus. I was living on because it's essentially living expense for the entire semester.
Wow.
But it was like because I studied hard in high school to get the scholarship, whatever. But it wasn't loan, so it was all grants and scholarships or whatever. But it would be like 8K a semester, and that's a lot for like 18, 19-year-old to like, you know. Kind of, every beginning of the semester, I'm like, yeah, I'm rich. Um, I would go on like a spending spree of like just buying all these clothes on like
Yeah.
H&M, Zara, and like weird sites. I want to look cool because also at the time I'm watching a lot of Korean drama, so there's like, oh, I want to look like those guys.
Yes.
Just no priorities at all whatsoever in terms of money, and it was to the extent of I would go into debt first just the right amount, and I would just take I would wait until the new semester started, take that grant and scholarship, and just pay off all the credit cards, and I'll be at zero. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I have to work to make all the rent and the rest of the stuff now. Um, so yeah, stupid stuff like that. But let's transition. How has your relationship with money changed? Because it certainly did a lot for me, especially as I started, doing my own business and having to be really thoughtful about how to spend money and just learning from other people. How has that changed for you?
Yeah, so I think over time, um, I've had to, teach myself a lot about the principles about money.
Mm,
I've had to read a lot of books, talk to a lot of people, because I realized that if I don't, if I don't get a handle on this now,
mhm,
I don't want to end up in retirement with nothing in the
mhm,
coffers, right? I don't want to be just relying on other people. So I realized I had to teach myself, and I had to, begin to get myself out of the situation that I put myself into
mhm,
financially. Because remember, I taken that loan out, 36,000. So that has an interest rate.
mhm,
I've been using credit cards and everything. I was like, all right,
mhm.
this because I wanted to buy different, like very similar. Like I wanted to buy courses. I wanted to like
Yeah,
get more education, and a lot
yeah,
of them were not smart decisions.
yeah.
So what ended up happening, what changed with my relationship with money was that learning, and I realized that one of the things in the financial independence community that I realized that really like impacted me was
Mhm,
that there is an endpoint when it comes to money.
mhm,
If you can get your expenses under control, and if you can wisely invest your money, there is a point where you don't really have to work ever again in your life
mhm,
because
mhm,
your investment income equals
yeah,
your expenses. And so
yeah.
I think that realization for me made me more excited because I was like, wow, well, if there really is an end game, I'd ideally want to shorten that timeline to as close as
Mhm, mhm,
possible.
mhm,
And so it behooves me to understand how to budget, how
mhm,
to invest,
mhm,
and become financially savvy.
mhm.
Especially because, both you and I we're still in our 20s. If we
Yeah,
can also get this figured out now,
yeah.
we don't have to retire at like 59 and a half or 60. I don't
Mhm,
know the age, 64, 65, 68. We could
yeah,
retire in 10, 15, 20 years,
mhm,
and that's the most amazing thing. And so
yeah,
just that vision, I'd say, of knowing the end can be close. Like, and I've calculated for me, I could possibly retire in 10 years. And without having to do anything ever again. Like I'll still do stuff, but it's like just knowing that the end line exists. I was like,
yeah,
wow, that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. That's kind of pretty bonkers. 10 years. Um, I personally don't really think about retirement in the sense of like I can't see myself not working.
Hmm.
I think I enjoy working. I
Yeah.
just can't sit still and do nothing. But for me, I think kind of like you about learning how to invest and like kind of speed up that track, but also more so of understanding the relationship at least a little bit better between time and money,
Mm,
uh, and spending money at certain periods to buy time essentially. So, for example, is it a cat or something?
hmm? Oh, cat? No, that's that's
Okay, no, no, okay. For me, it was like for example, a higher like outsourcing certain tasks that I personally could do by myself, but it takes up time and it's not really efficient way to use my
valuable.
time.
Yeah.
So I would pay that amount. In terms of courses, it's I mean how I saw it, especially when I invested like $10,000 for Billie Jean course, which was the best probably investment. But it was essentially to that was also the case because I had a client that I didn't know what the hell to do with. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I gotta figure it out. So I gotta buy this course.
Yeah,
Uh,
man.
and in some sense, it was the right. It was definitely the right decision, but I probably wouldn't do it that way anymore.
Yeah.
But in terms of like courses, because I don't know how other Asians or people that are on like traditional tracks think about courses made by people that are not institutions.
Mm,
I think at first I was pretty skeptical too, especially after experiencing like Tai Lopez's course. I
yeah,
didn't buy it. My younger brother did, and I looked at
I
it like,
bought them. I bought them as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And at least the one that I bought, I can't speak for all of them, but at least the one that I bought, I'm like, this is bullshit. Um, but the one that I bought with Billie Jean, it saved a lot of time
Hmm.
because at least for me, I binge watch all these lessons and everything, just pack it into like a week and finish everything. Like, okay, obviously I still have a better sense. I understand like the technicalities of things, but to really understand psychology and stuff, that takes a little bit of time. But for me, that was like the main shift in how I saw money. It's more so about how can I utilize money to save time,
Hmm.
not for myself, but also for my family and the people that I care about, and
Love that.
especially for business as well. Um, so let's transition into what you do kind of to strengthen your knowledge, because obviously working out, doing push-ups, whatever, going to the gym is to physically get us fit. What are some of the things that you do to kind of get you fit financially, like financial knowledge at least?
Yeah. So similar to like fitness, to build the reps in finance, part of it is number one, tracking. So
Mm-hmm.
on a weekly basis, I have this spreadsheet where
Mm-hmm.
I log like, okay, so this is my expected expenses for the month.
Mm-hmm.
This is my goal that I'm trying to hit. Like, how
Mm-hmm.
close am I to there? What changes have happened in the market? And so on an ongoing basis, I'm like tracking everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm figuring out how to best utilize my money.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, having that. Second thing is just learning. Um, you know, I've read a bunch of books on finance. I don't read as much books now. But I'd say that I read a lot of books that built myself up. I also follow a lot of financial Instagram
Yeah.
accounts.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's other people who are in their 20s and they are very transparent with their money journey, like where they
Mm-hmm.
put their money,
Mm-hmm.
how big is their net worth, and so I follow them and I look for their advice and how they do
Mm-hmm.
things. Um, but aside from that, so there's budgeting, there's just learning from other people. Um, and I'd say also, I just talk to a lot of people about money as well. I think that builds my strength as well, particularly
Yeah.
people who are like 10, 20, 30 years older than me, who already are retired. And so I
Mm-hmm.
literally, because they've already gone through what we've gone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they're like, okay, so if I was in your shoes, I would first make sure to, save up 6 months of emergency. After that, I would invest into a Roth IRA. And the next thing I'd max out your 401k, and I would have an HSA account. And like, so just talking to a bunch of people who are older, I figure out, okay, you know, how does this compare to my strategy? And then every conversation I have, I go back and I tweak it to
Yeah.
figure things out differently. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of just daily practice, talking,
Right. Right.
learning,
Right.
and implementing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you don't, because I think a lot of people have taboo on talking about money, try to avoid it. Maybe they think money is bad. Um, I don't believe that money doesn't have emotion. It's
Mm,
just paper.
yeah.
It's just how we react to money. I mean, human beings have, at least in our church, what we call fallen nature. We tend to do
Mm,
certain things badly. Um, but like, this is something that I just thought of, just on the topic of being stupid with money. Um, I think the year after I graduated from college, either that or the last year of college, I was doing day trading
Ah,
with my brother.
all right.
Oh my god! So like I had maybe like $2,000-3,000 in my savings, and that was it. But I was using the entire amount to go into a trade and then wait a couple of minutes. It's like, oh my god, it's going down, and then pull out and lose like a couple $100 at a time. in a matter of minutes.
Oh my gosh.
If you're listening to this and you've thought about day trading, please educate yourself. It definitely can work because I was in a group and everything, and they taught me a lot of great stuff. I just didn't listen to it. I was very lazy about it, very nonchalant. I was like, oh yeah, if I just maybe hit one hit wonder, I'll make a lot of money, and then that'll be the end of it. But a lot of people that were successful in that group were very disciplined. It's the same situation with anything. If you join any like social media marketing agency type of group stuff, the ones who are disciplined and kind of do it every day are the ones that end up succeeding. I don't know why I brought that up, but that's another thing that I did stupidly with my money.
No, I did the same with some cryptocurrency stuff. It's actually happened recently, and so this might be a good story. Just
Okay.
a quick story to share. So yeah, so I was talking to a friend, and he's pretty financially well off, and he was like, "Hey man," and I'd only known him through social media, so I was like, "Hey man, I heard you talking about some cryptocurrencies," and he's like, "Yeah man, let's hop on a call together," and so I hop on a call with them. And again, I don't. And right now, I think it's a loss. Maybe I'll redact this in the future, but right now, it looks pretty bad. So, so basically, he was like, "Oh yeah, there's this, this new type of cryptocurrency. It's called Tron, and Tron. What it does, it helps creatives to, like to make more from the work that they put out online." I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. Whatever." He's like, "Yeah, man, it's." What I've heard through the grapevine is that it's going to double near the holidays. I was like, all right, it's going to double near holidays. Okay, whatever. I guess I put some money in. But he's like, no, but this is special. So there's not only did to put into the cryptocurrency, there's this Telegram app that you have to sign up for, and it's like an AI bot, and it'll double your money. I was like, all right, yeah, it sounds like I know you. You sound pretty good. That sounds pretty great. I'll put in $2,000, whatever. I'll just put it in to see what happens.
Yeah.
And so. Yeah, I'm still kind of mad. I'm mad about it right now because because it's still pretty recent. So I ended up putting the $2,000 in this Telegram app, and it's like called One Toro, and so you have this wallet. You have to basically have to send money into this app, and then from there they buy you these slots, and then from that slots it mines things and it sends you back money. And I bought 62,000 slots, which is equivalent to $2,000. And I thought that it would double pretty quickly, but it turns out you can't convert it back if you want to take it out, and they just leave it there. And so I messaged the admin. I'm like, "Yo, bro, like it doesn't say like I have any earnings or commissions." And he's like, "Well, right now we're fixing the mono line," is what they call it, the mono line. And I'm like, all right, whatever. 2 weeks later, still nothing. 2 weeks later, still nothing. I still have zero in my account. Maybe it changes, but yeah, I literally didn't know what I was doing. I was like, all right, someone recommended it. I'm just going to do it rather than trying to understand this. I think that's the biggest trend. It's like, instead of trying to understand what I was putting money into, I just put money into it. It's so dumb. So that's, I don't know. I just want to share that because there's a lot of hype stuff right now with currencies, whatever, but really you got to understand what the hell you're doing and don't just take recommendations just because someone said it.
And I think it also falls under the line of like being impatient, trying to double money quickly. That's at least for me. It happened every single time. Every time I made a mistake with money, it was with day trading. I wanted to get rich really quickly. It was with Bitcoin. I thought I could get rich really quickly. It'll solve all my problems. What other dumb stuff have I done? Something else. Recently, I bought sports cards that turned into not so valuable anymore. Kind of like you, several thousand. Some are doing better. It's the same situation. I was conscious. It was money that it's not like before where it's like my last $3,000. It's money that I could play with to some extent. Probably too aggressive in my opinion now. But same situation. I was in a rush. I wanted to see if I could double my money really quickly, and didn't really study the stuff because if you listen to Gary Vee, he's really passionate about sports cards, but he's very particular about what type of sports cards you need to buy. I obviously didn't dig too deep until after the fact, And then I started learning a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, so that was my mistake.
Yeah.
What the cards were, I don't know if I have it on my desk. It's just a bunch of LeBron James because at the time he was winning, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, he's gonna win the championship. His value is gonna like triple. And I don't want to be rich. Not that to that sense, but you know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. But that wasn't the case. It actually went the opposite route because what happened was in that situation is that particular card had too much volume. There was too many printed. So it's just supply and demand. The supply was getting out of hand. Demand was going lower, so the value just went a lot lower.
Yeah. Reminds me
Yeah.
of the situation that you actually are involved in this situation. Remember when I bought those calls dolls? Remember I don't know anything about calls, but some of my hype beast friends are like, yeah, bro, they sell out all the time. They're like double in value. I'm like, oh really? Yeah, I'll throw my money in there. Let me buy all these dolls. I'm not a hype beast, dude. I don't know anything. I'm
You
just
bought
like,
a lot.
I bought a lot of dolls, and I was like, bro, like I even if they double, like I don't want to hold on to this. Like, what am I gonna do with all this money,
Yeah.
like these dolls? So
Yeah.
yeah, for everyone who doesn't know, like I reached out to Isaac, and I was like, because Isaac knew how to sell stuff, and I was like, bro, I don't care. Please just help me sell these. I really don't know what to do with this.
Yeah, we got rid of it. We lost some, but at least we didn't lose a lot.
Yeah.
But a little bit more context on that doll situation. They were before in previous releases. They did double in value because the stock was much lower. But this time it's the same situation, supply and demand.
Yeah.
But let's jump into another topic about money, and probably the last one in terms of money. What are your thoughts on tithing? So this is something I've read in Rich Dad Poor. You know what I mean by tithing, right?
Like giving money back to, let's say, the church or
Yeah, something like that. I've read in Rich Dad and Poor Dad that it's something that helps us, I guess, not just budget but see money differently when you regularly tithe. But for me, I mean, since I was little, I've always been told by my parents, look, you gotta tithe 10%. You have to give 10% to God, with the intention of I'm giving 100%. So that's how I was brought up. But what are your thoughts on tithing?
So I'm not the best person to speak on it because right now I don't do much in terms of tithing, but I think that it should be part of the plan. One person that I follow that I want to emulate is that what she does, she takes about like every year she increases the percentage, but she starts off like the first year, 1% of your income, just give it back to others, people who can't repay it. The next year, 2%, 3%, 4%, just to get people in the habit. But I would say that, yeah, having that money deployed to help other people, I don't know. There's something that I don't know what it is, but I think it does come back to you when you do good unto others.
Yeah.
Because I've not with tithing specifically, but just like helping other people in life has always come back to help me. Yeah, I'm not the best at that, but that's how I would approach it. And that's something that's one of my 2021 goals to do better at doing that. So
you can do it, John. I believe in you. You want me to hold you accountable?
Yes, hold me accountable.
Okay, I'll take your 10%.
Take my 10%.
I'll give it to the church. Don't worry, but I'll take it. Okay, that's fine. I mean, personally, at some points in like college, I couldn't do it because I couldn't prioritize it enough.
Yeah.
At the time, like 10% would have been like, I don't know, $40. But to me, it was like, oh my God, it's like 10 meals. It's just scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I see it as something that helps me. Yeah, kind of like what I read in Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't know what the exact quotes were, but it just helps me see my money differently to always separate 10% for God, for church. Yeah. And in some sense, it's kind of selfish. I feel good about myself when I tithe a lot, when I donate to other stuff. So I mean, I think that's with some other people too.
Yeah.
But
some people like donating money as well. I'm just not money, I'm donating time as well, which I think is good too. So I just want to drop that in before we transition.
Yeah. No, I think I mean, time is more valuable than money. So that's something that's personally for me in 2021 to donate a little bit more of my time for community work. But we're already at the hour mark, but we're gonna jump really quickly since it's almost the new year. Let's talk about one thing that you wish you had done more of this year. And I'll share my viewers.
Yeah, one thing I wish I did more of this year. Well, it was a crazy year, obviously with the pandemic. But one thing I wish I did better at was like checking in on friends. Just because when I don't know, I just kind of got lost in my own world when it came to the pandemic and just wanting to focus on business. But I wish I checked in on more friends, even just to drop a note saying like, "Hey, I was thinking about you. How's everything going?"
Yeah.
That's definitely one thing I wish I did more of.
Yeah, same thing. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Especially around my birthdays when I start to reflect a little bit on the year. Kind of like you, got caught up with just working. In the summers it was reselling. At one point, I can show you a picture later. We had like 40 freezers. I would not recommend this with anyone. I had 40 like big freezers. Like the chest freezers.
Yeah, you did.
Delivered to my apartment. I mean, the story is I ordered like 10 because I'm on the conservative side. My brother ordered 30. So everyone at the apartment complex was livid because we weren't home. We were away at work, and we didn't come until later to handle the situation. It was god awful. But just like getting caught up with just work and money stuff, and like I realized that I should have checked in on the people a lot more often, and that's something to work on definitely this year. Let's jump into one thing you're most proud of this year.
One thing I'm most proud of, I'd say hitting our monthly revenue goal, at least monthly gross revenue goal. That I think we hit it for the year. And so our goal was to bring in over $83,333.33 gross a month, and we hit it for December. We brought in over 100,000.
Wow!
And so I didn't know it was gonna happen, but I was surprised. I was like, "What?" That's because given the way the world is, like I thought that all my goals were shot. So I was super proud because we hit the goal. We did so while maintaining our emergency savings, not having to lay anyone off for the team.
Yeah.
But I will say that we were privileged just because the industry that we're in. There's a lot of people that were not in that similar situations. But I was proud of that because we were able to do that. But also acknowledging that we got lucky in a sense too.
Congratulations. That'll put you at the big 7 figures.
Yeah, that's why I picked that number. A million divided by 12 is 83,333.
Something.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. I mean, on my end, it's hitting the 6 figures.
Yay!
So,
dude, 6 figures it's a big milestone too.
I think it's probably the hardest.
Yeah, it is.
Probably harder than the. I mean, obviously hitting a million is also hard, but starting from nothing to hit 100K is really scrappy. Because I'm combining income from like reselling all that stuff. And
yes.
Also, all the agency work as well. I guess for me, one thing that I'm proud of this year, convincing my wife to come to America in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
That was difficult.
Awesome. I'm so happy with you guys.
Thank you. It's a proud moment, but it's also has its challenges because she has a lot to assimilate to. It's a new country, new culture, new everything. Plus, you can't leave the house as much. Similarly, on my end, even though I'm living in America, but just living with another person is a completely different story.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. Let's see. One thing you're looking forward to in the new year.
Looking forward to the new year. I'd say one of the things I'm hoping that COVID stuff or releases and if things are okay again. One thing I'd be looking forward to is one of my goals for next year would be to digital nomad again. So I'd love to live in a different country. I'm not sure which one yet, but which one? Korea. Actually, I'm considering that. Actually, I was considering Korea's on my list. Seoul, definitely.
Yeah.
There, Singapore, Philippines. So it's like the Asian countries. I'm really, if things open up and I can travel and I can live there, I'm
Yeah.
planning on doing that. That's what I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to.
That's awesome. Yeah. For me, it's really make the priority of making more connections, not for business necessarily, but more for my personal life.
Mhm.
I think, especially when you're in the beginning stages of trying to run your business and grow it, you just forget. You just end up cutting off ties that you don't intentionally want to. I didn't intentionally like cut off ties with old friends from college.
Mhm.
That was never my intention, but it just worked out that way because of how I was spending my time, how I was spending my money, which does not include going out to eat because
Yeah.
there was not a surplus that I could afford. But just really focusing on people more so than just uh, money or trying to like
Mhm.
achieve a certain goal. But I think I also have to shift my mindset on like business and figure out my big why again, kind of revisit that reflection time, and also just find a bigger purpose
Love
than
that.
just myself. Um, so yeah, thank you so much, John, for this wonderful
Dude.
podcast. I really hope people that watch in the future, I'm gonna chop it up. This is what we do. We're gonna chop it up, especially the Asian part, and hopefully people can really take some value out of it. And because I think shifting perspectives is a huge part to seeing gratitude in life, to being appreciative of even in difficult circumstances. This is something I suck at and I'm actively trying to work on.
Mm.
I think something that came up in today's morning sermon was that in difficult situations, when the worst parts of people come out,
Mm.
to overcome that, you have to really think beyond yourself, and even in difficult situations, think about how other people feel, how God will feel, and things like that. But anyway, thank you for this wonderful session, and really thank you for your time. And why are you getting so worked up, man?
Oh, I was like, thank you as well for having me, Isaac. I appreciate you, man. Like, I always, I've always told you, and I always keep it in the back of my mind, like how inspiring you are. Like, I actually aspire to be your discipline level. I don't know why you say for about me. I look at you, I'm like, damn, this man is locked on. Like, I want to be like Isaac. So I appreciate you, man. You are hustling it out, and I appreciate
I'm trying, man. I'm trying. Gotta pay the bills, you know. But definitely, most recently, I think I've worked too much to the point of like having anxiety when I wake up. It's like, oh my god, I have to fucking work again.
Mm.
So I gotta control that a little better. But let's talk about that off the camera. Thank you, everyone that came. If you came, thank you if you're watching it later.
All righty. Bye, everyone.